have to get myself off the Patreon.
I still haven't. I'm still on the Patreon. Like, you know, a year and a half later. So
generously cutting it in half with
yeah. Hi everybody. Hopefully you can hear us all.
What's up?
And so Megase is here with us.
Video
Again.
out of sync a bit. Oh no.
Video out of sync a bit. I don't even know. I have no idea what to do about that, Matt.
Quick, restart the stream.
Oh God, I don't know. Is it still doing it? Are you sure it's on?
How out of sync?
Yeah, how bad is it? Is anybody else seeing that also, or is it like?
I mean,
like a second?
I always notice a delay, but the delay I notice is between Discord and Twitch, so that's not something other people would.
Yeah,
it's hard for us to judge.
Hopefully it's just you, Matt.
Yeah, is anybody else, if anyone else in chat hears us? Good news? It's oh good, thank God. Okay. Matt, my heart can't take it tonight. You can't do that to me. Okay. I'm glad it was a problem between the keyboard and the seat cushion. So that is I appreciate that. Okay. You're not the problem, Matt. You're just, you know, you solved the problem. You solved the problem. Okay. So I guess it's a matter of like how much time we need to lead into time the reveal right at 8.
I mean, I think there will be plenty to.
So you're saying we should start recording and start clapping? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like with the intro and everything, I feel like it'll be
okay. Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Then I am recording.
Will
Just call you Taylor, Matt.
I am recording.
Recording.
Okay. All right. So actually, I think I'm gonna hang on. I just want to turn you down a little because you're clipping on my track.
I can turn me down as well.
So yeah, if you can just say something again.
Something again.
Okay, that looks
We
better.
doing it better?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
you've been hanging out with me way too long.
Look, no one ever knows what to say at those times. It's just the easiest thing to do.
All right.
That's what I found.
So, all right. So we'll clap and then we'll start the show and then we'll do the thing. So 3, 2, 1, clap. 3, 2, 1, clap. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
I grant you permission to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here, Fred Shadows.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred.
Welcome to episode 405 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. And from Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
And joining us once again for the third time from Teldrassil, California, we have Megase.
Hello.
Welcome.
And it's good to have you back. And it's we said we had a big announcement in addition to the card reveals. And the big announcement is that Megase is going to be putting up with a lot more puns because she is our new co-host. So we're really excited to have her. And oh, well, we have to do this. Hang on.
That was not the effect I was expecting you to hit.
Oh, what were you expecting?
I thought you were gonna go for like the applause, like yay, cheering one. But yeah, that also works. Sufficiently epic.
I'll take all of it. Very epic. I'm
Yeah.
really excited.
You know, we were sort of going through all different kinds of folks, other content creators, just people from the Discord, and it was like, you know, up front there is no guarantee that anyone would necessarily be being considered just because they were on. Some people we just wanted to have as guests, while you know we would be keeping us from being down to just the two of us, because I think 3 is really a good number for discussion. So like Lorinda, that was never going to work time zone wise.
We love Lorinda to death, and he's welcome, and they're welcome back whenever they would like to come back. But time zone wise, it was going to be like a disaster for everybody involved. Yeah.
And so there were a number of factors, but we didn't want to wait too long to pick up a permanent third host, because with my wife being quite pregnant and due in August, there's a very real possibility that, you know, I would be missing a couple of episodes. And so we need someone to be able to hold down the fort with Wicked while I am, you know, changing diapers and drinking mate to survive on no sleep. So,
yeah. And I mean, I've been able to do podcasts by myself from, you know, for long periods of time, but I don't think I could stream it while driving. So I think that would be a little bit dangerous, but we're really happy to have Megasa on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we've really enjoyed the couple episodes we got to do, and I'm looking forward to doing it a lot more. And really happy to have your teaching expertise as part of the show too, being an educational podcast. I think that's a really great addition to the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So to continue with this beginning of the show, you get to join us for this very exciting moment where we are going to get to reveal a card. So thank you for all around the world listeners. There's a few more of you in chat today. And I think we at 8 o'clock?
We're just about there. And I will say we've actually got 2 sets of cards, because we have the Paladin cards that are coming in the set, and there are also a couple of core cards that we've been given to talk about. So don't take your screenshot and leave, because we got more to talk about after just this first set. But let's go right into that. That is not the right thing at all. Sorry about that. That's for later, and it's also adorable, but that's not what we're looking for. So here are the Paladin cards that we are revealing from Titans. So we have, I guess we can each take one, and then, you know, one of us can take the other. But we have, the first one we have is X21 Repair Bot, which is a 1 mana 1/3 mech. Death Rattle, return any mechs magnetized to your hand.
Very evocative of, Primal Fin Champion or Immortal Prelate, these cards that kept enchantments later on and got shuffled into your deck. But this one specifically for Magnetize. And at 1 mana, I think is way more playable than those previous ones were, especially with the magnetic 2-drop that we got in Paladin. Pretty solid 1/2 combo.
Yep.
Absolutely. And we have even more mech support with Inventor's Aura, which is a 2 mana holy spell. Your mechs cost 1 less, last 2 turns. So this is kind of like the objective cards that we had in Alterac Valley, although I don't think it has the... I'm actually... You guys may know what the effect looks like, but it's not just for the turn you play it, but the turn after you can have an even bigger tempo swing with the mechs costing 1 less.
Yeah, and if you stick around for the core cards we'll be going over later, this appears to be what Paladin is getting to replace secrets. So, it was a big deal that they decided, hey, it's kind of weird that Paladins have this whole secret thing. It doesn't really fit with the theming of the Paladin class. So it seems that they've taken sort of the objective mechanic from Alterac and decided that that's a Paladin thing now. So Inventor's Aura is a great one. Might be a little awkward, on 2, because you got to have a 1-drop to be able to play any minions on the same time. But if you think of something like that 1 mana 2/1 mech that discounts your next mech, that will let you play a 2 mana mech in that same turn because you play it for free, discounts your next one, that's discounted too, so you can play a 2-drop. So you could have some pretty big spikes with this location, not just on turn 3, but also on the turn you play it if you kind of get the right stuff in your mulligan there. Yeah. But we can head on over to a different tribal, which is Astral Serpent, 4 mana 3/3 dragon. At the end of your turn, if this didn't attack, draw 2 cards. And I do believe that includes the turn that you play it. So no matter what, you are getting 4 mana for a 3/3, draw 2. And if every other turn that it stays alive, if you don't attack with it, you get to draw the 2 cards. So honestly, just having basically a mana tide totem that can defend itself because it actually has power, and it draws you 2 cards that first turn that you play it. Like, this is nutty in terms of card draw for the Paladin class.
Yeah, and like if you're playing against the mage, right, and they freeze it, well, okay, that's a weird decision now, right? Because it's like, well, do you want to take the damage, or do you from whatever else is on board? Because presumably there are going to be other things on board than just this if they're like playing a blizzard or something. So do you want to freeze it and then give you 2 cards, or do they want to, take the damage and let it attack? So, and there's other reasons that you wouldn't attack, like there's a big taunt in the way, or or it's been like class action lawyered and it managed to live, or whatever. Like there are other reasons that you might want to let it live, or maybe you just decide that it's worth letting your opponent not take 3 damage to get 2 more cards and be able to do more damage the following turn. It creates some interesting decision points.
And your opponent, your opponent is probably going to, if they don't have a spell to get rid of this, want to trade into it for you, even before it would have a chance to attack normally, because otherwise you get to draw potentially 2 more cards, and 4 cards off of this is a lot. So even if you're not doing anything with the dragon tag, although that adds some extra interesting wrinkles, especially if you're in a pure paladin with Purator, it's competing with Anachronos, but it does mean that after you draw with Purator, you would have even more draw in your hand. But this does set up a sort of soft taunt that your opponent has to deal with.
And additionally, it seems as though the way the Dragon Paladin has leaned is a little bit more controlling in terms of you've got the, rush dragons and give stuff taunt and divine shield. So this kind of fits in sort of a controlling Dragon Paladin kind of archetype that they're throwing just a little bit more support. And with that sort of control theme, we have the final card from Titans to reveal, Judge Unworthy. Set an enemy minion's health to 1, then deal 1 damage to all enemies. So no matter what, you're killing the minion that you target with this, but you do also get sort of like Howling Blast, that residual damage. Paladin doesn't do a lot of spell damage, but there's sometimes stuff in neutral, so maybe there could be some combinations there if you want bigger board clear, although I think still be doing Consecrate in those situations. This one, I kind of have much more mixed feelings about than the others. I sort of like this one the least. So what about you two?
I mean, it's Consecration that actually kills the thing, for sure, right? Because, like, Consecration is fine, but if you don't have a quality, it's just kind of whatever by the time you get to play it. This way, at least you're killing one thing. If you're against like an aggro, like we've seen a lot of tokeny things from Druid, for example, or like an Outcast Demon Hunter that's playing all the rushers, like you can kill more than one thing, or you can set things up to kill more than one thing, and being able to just wipe one minion off the board for sure, and then be able to damage everything else. I think it could see a place in something that's like a slower paladin.
I was thinking, 4 mana is a lot for this, but then my other thought was this is an expansion where every class has a Titan, and having hard removal, which this is in a sense, it does still do damage, but it sets to 1 first. Having hard removal, which Paladin is not necessarily as strong with in general, might be worth it if there's a lot of decks that have Titans or other big minions that you need to be able to remove. And if you're playing a slower deck, the 4 mana may be worth it. Hard to say. It might be meta dependent as well.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Paladin's typically removing things right now is either with the location, which is awkward, or it's with like class action lawyer, which only works in a pure Paladin deck, right? So like this is an actual removal that Paladin gets for a non-pure Paladin, which is, you know, not insignificant.
Yeah, Paladin removals have generally been all about changing stats, but you still need the damage to follow up, such as, you know, Pyro Quality from, you know, the very beginning of Hearthstone. That's still around. But any of these changing stats, you still need to either be ahead on board or have a weapon or something to clear the minion that remains if you're worried about its effects. And since all the Titans have these, you know, crazy effects, you do actually want to fully remove the minion and not just change its stats. So yeah, I expect we could be having some, you know, slower controlling Paladins that use stuff like the 6-mana weapon that, you know, sets stuff to 3/3, and maybe stuff like Judge Unworthy, just to have access to those hard removals. Be a different way to use that weapon versus just hitting the enemy in the face with Wind Fury.
Yeah. And I mean, we're going to a magnetized meta too, right? Like there's going to be a lot of tall minions, presumably, assuming that magnetized turns out to be what it looks like it's going to be. Then, you know, being able to wipe one big minion off the board may be all you need. So, but wait, there's more, as they say on the infomercial. So we do have the two new core set additions, which are both auras. We have Resistance Aura, which is a 2-mana holy spell. Your opponent's spells cost 1 more, last 3 turns. And Crusader Aura, which is a 4-mana holy spell. Whenever a friendly minion attacks, give it +2/+1, last 3 turns. So very different directions for these two in terms of core. I imagine, I mean, getting a Cult Neophyte effect for 3 turns is something that, you know, would be pretty wanted depending on what kinds of decks are in the meta, certainly. And if you're going wide, I mean, certainly Mech Paladin appears to be at least one direction that we're going to be going in, and Pure Paladin is not going to go away. So being able to buff all of those minions, that could be a lot of damage in a hurry.
If there's room for it, a more aggressive deck might still potentially want Resistance Aura just because it makes it harder to clear. You know, it's not necessarily as powerful as Okani on any given turn, but it lasts for 3 turns. It's cheaper, and it can perform some of the same, at least slowing down a clear by a turn. You know, if you're facing a Control Priest, they can't play their Clean the Scene on 5. They have to wait till 6. That could make the difference, just having that extra turn. It does depend on, you know, whether you have the deck slot for it in a more aggressive deck, but it's got, you know, I think not just anti-combo potential. You know, obviously if we're facing something like Miracle Rogue and you put this down, they're just kind of stuck for 3 turns.
Yeah.
Well, and Paladins have traditionally struggled with something like a Miracle Rogue because it's tough for aggressive Paladin decks to sort of recover once they've been, you know, board swung against and pushed off. So having something like this just to keep from that swing even from happening in the first place and just close out the game before the Miracle Rogue can really pop off is a pretty big deal, because those could be some seriously tough matchups. And Crusader Aura as well. I mean, that is, you know, Paladin bloodlust pretty much. If you've established a strong board, you've done Boogie Down, you've played 1-drops in those first few turns, and then you Crusader Aura, getting +2/+1 on all of those is nuts. And you can even do it in other ways, like with the Wind Fury Rush, like Mech Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
That gets this buff twice, you know, going into minions. So I really like the way that this one is set up, as opposed to Dunbalder Bridge, which, since it happened at the, like, when you summon the minions,
Yeah.
you had to set it up beforehand, and it was just super awkward. But here, you get the benefit immediately from the minions you have in play, and then if they clear, you can still get a little more time by, like, rebuilding a board on that next turn and then having the following turn to swing, or just utilizing rush minions to get the benefit immediately.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with Dumbalder Bunker was just like, it was take turn 4 off to hopefully, as an aggro deck, right? Like the way that you were playing that in like a dude paladin sometimes, and like you would have to take turn 4 off, which you absolutely do not want to do as a tempo deck in order to be able to get value later. Like that's not what you want to do. This is giving you the value right away the turn you're playing it, and then you still have that in future turns, especially if you have rush minions or whatnot. And also worth, even if you're not playing Resistance Aura in the Paladin deck, in the Pure Paladin deck, or a Mech Paladin, Pure Paladin still runs Muckborn Servant. It's just going to get it sometimes. And this is a card that you might just pick off a Muckborn Servant when you already have a board to just kind of close the door. So it may not even necessarily be a card that you have to put in your deck, but you'll just get it sometimes. Or School Teacher, if we're playing a non-pure paladin, which it looks like the earthen cards, which we probably should just talk about to wrap up paladin as well. I don't have a graphic for those because we were focusing on the cards that everyone hasn't seen yet, and not the cards that you have seen. But the earthen cards that are relying on summoning these 2/2s that get bigger every turn. I'm bringing them up now to talk through them. But like those are going to incentivize you to play a non-pure paladin, because Tears, which is the 5 mana spell, which resurrects 3 different paladin minions and sets their stats to 2/2 with Forge, Resurrect another. Like, you're going to want to resurrect just the minions that make the earthens, because the way that it's set up with Tyr, which is the legendary, the 7 mana 4/5 legendary with Battlecry, resurrect a 2, 3, and 4 attack paladin minion, and then the ones that make the earthens are, whoops, I just lost it, but those are 2, 3, and 4 attack, right?
You'll resurrect an earthen that's 2/2, even if it gets the buff after it's summoned. The Death Rattle, which has 3 attack, and then the 4/6, which summons 1 at the end of turn or something.
Yeah, so the Stoneheart King is the 4 mana 3/2 with Death Rattle, summon an earthen, and then the 6-drop is Disciple of Amethyst, which is a 6 mana 4/6. At the end of your turn, summon a 2/2 earthen, and each one gets +2/+2 for each one that you've summoned up to this point when you summon it. It's not an aura, but it gets that buff when you summon it. So they'll summon in order that way. But Tyr will resurrect an earthen, a base earthen, and then the Death Rattle earthen, and then the end of turn earthen, which gets you another earthen. So like that's something that you're gonna want to do. But that's resurrecting paladin minions, which means that you want all the other minions that are in your deck that are not one of those 4 to be a neutral. So that's going to push you away from playing a pure paladin, which might have some room for some more of these other things.
Au contraire, you could just have spells, Wicked.
You could also just die.
No, because I think with the paladin tools we've gotten, and like the Titan and everything, I think they've got enough strong spells, and with the addition of something like Resistance Aura, if you need to slow folks down, just in general, they've got stuff that they can set up besides, running neutral stuff that, okay, Tyr resurrects those, but you also don't want to mess up your resurrect pool for the Forge spell, right? Because that one is any minions. Then it sets them to 2/2s.
Yeah.
No, I think they're both just paladin minions.
Oh, okay. All right. So I guess you could go either way.
Yeah, Tyr says 2, 3, and 4 attack paladin minion, and then Tears, which is still, it still makes me laugh that they named it that, is saying resurrect 3 different paladin minions. So
gotcha.
If those are the only paladin minions in your deck, and then everything else is neutrals and spells, and also you don't press your button, by the way, because Tyr won't resurrect that, but Tears will, right? So if you're not careful, you'll get a Silverhand recruit. But though,
the neutral that changes your hero power.
No, we're not running Algalon in this deck.
See, this is why you're a host now.
I have to troll you. No, there's a lot of neutral minions that might be useful. There's the one that the 2-mana one that makes a temporary copy in your hand that you can play. Maybe Cover Artist if we want to spend 4 mana on another one, which could, they add up very quickly, +2/+2 for each one. If you play Service Spell and you only have some Paladin cards, you're likely to get, be able to tutor one of the cards that'll get the Earthen Ball rolling. And there's the Kraken that
Ravenous Kraken.
Battle Cry. Ravenous Kraken. As a battle cry, it destroys a minion. As a death rattle, it resummons it. If you do that on the death rattle minion, that will then summon an Earthen.
Right.
Then you get 2 Earthens out of it. Or you could even, if you're desperate, just do it on a smaller Earthen. Now you have a bigger Earthen, but you probably want to target that on the death rattle minion that summons. So there's lots of neutral options. And then you could do some of the utility neutrals if you have room for it. Even just something like Treasure Guard to get a little bit of draw. Maybe Dispossessed Soul because you're probably running Dance Floor to give your big guys rush.
Sure.
Although, Dispossessed Soul is kind of a greedy card. It depends on how slow we are.
You could run Melted Maker to get more of the Forge spell, to get more things resurrected. If you're running Melted Maker, you may as well run Storm Giants just to live the dream, right? So it depends on how meaty we want to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Theory crafting stream. It's good.
Yes. Yeah, well, actually, that's worth mentioning. We can't say we don't have exact times yet, but we're going to be participating in the theory crafting. So keep an eye out on Twitter or in our Discord for that, and we will have an announcement. We can tell you specifics, but we have been invited to theory crafting as well. So we will get to put our money where our mouth is and see exactly how memey we're going to make some of these decks. But I already have a couple of priest decks theory crafted, as one would expect. So. And this seems like something that I'm interested in seeing how far the rabbit hole we go down, which seems like it could be pretty far if we're not careful.
Yeah, we have the Mech Paladin, which is the responsible aggressive deck that we know already has lots of support. And then we have the irresponsible minion deck, which maybe, I don't know. Someone might crack it, or it might be like Silence Priest on day 1 of Sunken City. I have to see.
Yeah. Hey, you could run selfish shellfish in there. There we go. That's draw for somebody.
I'm just excited for plagues. I just want to destroy people with Helya plague decks.
But anyway, so that's what we have for the Paladin card. So, and thank you again to the Hearthstone team and our good friend Ridiculous Hat for giving us this opportunity. It's definitely an honor to be included in something like this, and it doesn't get old. So thanks everybody. And I guess now that we're going to talk about the rest of the classes that have been revealed, in the bulk of the show, but I guess we can now go and go into the regular show now that we've done the special announcement. So I don't know who wants to start for Life and Ladder and talk about what we've been doing this week.
You're the one who's written.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm friends with Sidisi and normally it is a very good thing, except that when he makes me play Hunter against my will. And I was streaming last night. I was trying to play in Rage Warrior. It wasn't working. And I tried a couple of other things. I actually tried Secret Rogue for a couple of games. That was a disaster. I probably because I'm not cut out for it, but eventually said, why don't you just stop messing around and just play the Hunter? So I queued up the Hunter again. Now this is the same Hunter I took to Legend like last week. And the first game, see, the nice thing about playing Hunter when Sid is in my stream is that instead of getting upset at my opponent, I just yell at Sid when things go wrong. Because I had the first game, I drew all of my beasts by turn 4. I had a Hollow Hound. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 Hollow Hounds. I had a Hollow Hound, a Hydrolodon, and King Crush in my hand. By turn 4 was also the first time I got to play a card, because everything in my hand cost 6 except for like Pozic. and, and I was just sitting there like getting increasingly more annoyed at Sin every turn I was trying. I think on turn 3, I think I drew a banana, right? And like I'm sitting with a banana with no minion to play it on. This is the hunter deck that's supposed to kill people in the face, right? And so I'm sitting here getting increasingly angry, and then while my opponent is, I don't even remember what I was playing against. They could probably tell me, he's in chat. And because he points out that I won this game easily, which I did. I still won this game, despite the fact that I didn't play a card before turn 4, and I drew all of my beasts. And I still managed to win this game somehow. I think it was a Demon Hunter or something. I don't know. I saw a lot of big Demon Hunter last night. I don't know why all of a sudden that was a thing that I was seeing. Like,
I've been seeing a bunch as well. It's weird.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, I did win that game at the end, but it was, the first few turns were a bit of a rough ride getting there. Like in the most difficult possible way, I managed to win that game. But I got a little bit inspired / goaded by the people who have been posting triple legend screenshots on Twitter, and decided I would try to queue up Wilds again. Now that I've got Legend and Twist and Standard, I've got like a 5x multiplier in Wild. I started playing
Demon Hunter in every format when they're doing that, right?
Well, I'm playing Mech Paladin because that's fairly fast. Because you get to play all of the mechs, including like Galvanizer, which discounts all the mechs in your hand. And then you have the Frequency Oscillator, which is the 2/1 that discounts by 1. And you get Mech Warper. And you run Stonehearth Vindicator just to draw a radar detector to fill your hand up with more mechs. And then you just magnetize a whole bunch of stuff onto the mech dragon that gets Wind Fury if you have a mech in your hand. And then you hit them in the face for 30. So I'm playing that a little bit. I'm not sure how long I'm going to stick with it, because like a 5x multiplier is a tough crawl even with like half the month left, but it's at least something I can queue up like at lunch, you know, while I'm sitting in the pizza shop eating my pizza. I can queue something up and know that I'm not going to be late getting back to the office for my next meeting. But that's been it's been fun. I tried Shutterwalk Shaman at first, and that was a disaster, but the Mech Paladin seems to be working. And I'm still playing Trails in the Sky, and Trails in the Sky is very good, and I'm a little bit afraid that I'm going to get through the whole first game before the second game goes back on sale again. So and I'll probably end up paying full price for it if it does, because I'm a little hooked. So but I'm glad at least that I am there are worse problems to have, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah.
Well,
sorry.
how about you?
Sorry. I was just we neglected to mention, because I was moved on too quickly, but the Mech Dragon Wind Fury is a great target for the new Magnetize. You get a copy of this back.
Oh yeah.
Mech.
Yeah.
Even in Wild. So that I think might be one of your ideal hits for a little bit later, not just in the early turns. But I have been I also played a little bit of Wild. I was sitting there going, I'm behind in getting Legend because I've been too distracted by Twist, having a great time with the aggro beast, and also especially Quest Shaman, because I just love that deck to pieces, and the nostalgia factor is high, and now you can get a Glug every time, and I can never replace Hat, but if I'm going to be on this show, I have to respect Glug and play as many Glugs as I can. So I was playing a lot of that, and then I was going back into Standard and playing Enraged Warrior, which was a deck that I knew on paper looked really good for me, and it took me a little while to feel like it clicked. Sometimes decks click right away. I think this one, I was having too much interference effect from having played older Enraged Warriors that play quite differently. And this one also, one thing I like about it that also is a bit of a learning curve is you really have to decide what kind of game plan you have for each game based on a lot of different variables as quickly as you can. That was what I always loved about Naga Priest, was that there was so many different game plans. You could just try to snowball, you could try to have the big minions at the end. This time they have charge, so that's really nice. Or equivalent of charge with Vermornia and Olgra. But so I was finally feeling like I cracked that, although I will say my opponent in the listener series this week just crushed my Enraged Warrior Tuesday.
Was it literally with crush, or was it or figuratively?
No, I banned the hunter, but was still crushed. Made it into the top 8 anyway, which was surprising, but I'm happy. Although I don't know if as a host I'm really allowed to win, but I will still bring my
You're allowed
A-game.
to win. You're allowed to win. I mean, Had always played tier fun decks when he played, but I think you've earned the right to try hard in the listener series if you want to. I think it's up to you how how much you want to crush your opponent, literally or figuratively. But
yes.
But yeah. Enraged Warrior does seem like it's very up your alley. It does seem very Naga Priesty and it's one of those decks where you go face but kind of all at once sometimes, depending on what the game plan is. And it took me a lot of games to figure that deck out before I started to feel comfortable with it. Just because like it's really hard to figure that out at the beginning, because it's just like you have some of these like old school Miracle Rogue hands where you have like the equivalent of like 2 preps and 2 shadow steps and nothing else. And it's like, what am I supposed to do with this handful of crap? Right? and then you eventually figure it out. Yeah.
Naga Priest prepared me for the brick hands too, because there would be times when you got only your spells and no Naga. And that was even more untenable than only your Naga and no spells. I did have a very satisfying game against a Blood Death Knight where I managed to hit them with like a 28 Remornia and a 37 Grom in the same turn. I had seen both of their Vipers, so I was like, great, I can just hold on to this Remornia as long as I need to until I've cleared your taunts. And I managed to dodge the patchwork and just do like a 1 turn, like both Anima Extractors, both Sun Fury, deal 1 damage to everything, a couple of jam sessions. I mean, I just like got a huge number of buffs all on the same turn. And that was very satisfying, I will say.
Those are the best games, like with that deck, where you just get to I can ignore everything you've done for the past 15 minutes and just hit you in the head. Like, those are the best games. Even as a control player, I could respect that. Like,
yes. But I also played a little bit of Wild. I played a Silence Priest that World 8 posted that I think was originally a Corbett list. And it was very effective at my MMR, at least, which is not very high. It's like 2x or 3x because I just haven't played in a really long time in Wild, but it was very fun. And I even queued up a little bit of BGs because I figured I need to know a little bit more about that mode so that I can say something.
Well, at least one of us will be able to.
I actually won, but only because no one else knew what they were doing either.
We have Jay Carrick in chat as a consultant for BGs. That's basically what we do, because most of the time, we're not really a BGs show.
Yeah. Sometimes for when around Lobby Legends, we'll become a BGs show for like half an hour, and then yeah, that's fine. So Adel, what have you been up to?
So I did something incredibly foolish, which was I heard them talking about a certain kind of mage over on VS, and I was like, I should probably learn how to play these decks sometimes, right? I didn't really do Garrote Rogue. All right, we'll play some Sodium Gallium Mage. That's Naga. That's Naga Mage. Yeah, I mean, maybe if I were in a time where I was playing constantly, I would be able to devote enough to that deck. But I realized after, a dozen or so games that I was like, oh no, I would have to devote like my being to this deck to like get good enough for it to be worth it, right? It's the classic, I'm gonna, get destroyed for 50 to 100 games and then it'll click and we cruise from there.
It's Boar Priest, the sequel, basically. Like
kind of, it's not as intense as Boar Priest, I wouldn't think, but you just need to be able to know exactly what you need to discover in any given match. So I think, honestly, you sort of want to be at higher legend for playing it in some sense, just because then usually the number of decks that people use is more limited, right? So if you're trying to actually just climb with it where I am, facing all different kinds of decks, you don't necessarily know what you're going to be up against, and it's a little more challenging. But it's a ton of discovers from Infinitized Maxitude, from Vast Wisdom, right? So you have to be able to predict what things you're going to need from these discovers and pick them up. And there's sort of the APM turn, right? When you actually do go off with Spite Lash. And also, how do you adapt when you can't find your Spite Lash? There is a Finley in there. And there was a game where I did a bunch of stuff, played Finley, and then Zola'd the Finley to get my original hand back the following turn because I knew there were 2 frozen touches in that original hand. So it's a wild ride, and I don't recommend anyone, casually try and play Naga Mage, but it is cool, and I see how it can be the best deck in the game if you really commit to it. But I eventually hit a point where I was like, I don't have time for this. I still want to play other games, Diablo 4 has been sweet. So I looked through the Discord and found a World 8 no riff in Rage Warrior and started climbing with that because it's much more my speed. And then in Twist, which I've still been enjoying quite a bit, I've been playing the Quest DH, and that's been solid. That's a goofy one as well, where you just if you equip that weapon, you just complete 2 phases of the quest in one turn, play 4 or 5 brutes, and then mana burn, and it's weird. It's super weird.
Mana burn's always the card that I have a mental block about, and especially when I was playing the Quest Shaman, and then I'd be like, okay, fine, I don't care about all these minions. I'm just gonna do whatever I'm gonna do next turn anyway. Oh, right, I have 1 mana now because I'm both overloaded and I'm mana burned. Okay, well, I guess I die. Okay, fantastic. Yep. Let's go next.
That's a deck where you're thinking so much about your mana for next turn, which is in a way it's a great teaching tool to have Quest Shaman because it makes you think about your mana for next turn. But then, it can be hard to remember, oh, right, they could mana burn me.
Yeah.
And with these cards that we have for the new set, especially the plagues where you can just randomly get your cards costing 1 more, you have to, if you have that plague in your deck, you have to think about that every turn for the rest of the game.
I don't know if you listen to us talk about that, but that's going to be the most tilting one of the plagues for sure.
I'm going to have so many whirlpools stuck in my hand for the entirety of the game. I can already tell. But anyway, we have a lot of cards to talk about, and we have a little bit of news. And so I think we should probably get through that quickly, and then let's talk about some more cards that are not plagues. Whoops.
That's
the wrong one.
Right.
That's the wrong one.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
It's also the wrong overlay, but whatever. Yeah, so we have a little bit of news. San Diego Comic-Con is coming. I'm not quite sure of what the dates are, but Ben Hearthstone had posted that Blizzard is going to have a booth there with con exclusive merch. So if you are interested in a magnetic Murky plush or a plush Murloc hat, which is quite possibly the most adorable thing I've ever seen, then that's something, and you happen to be near San Diego, or going to San Diego Comic-Con, obviously, then go make your way over there. There's we'll have a link in the show notes to Ben's tweet where he's got a picture of the full catalog. There's not any Hearthstone specific stuff, but I feel like we can adopt the Murloc. I feel like that is a Hearthstone Murloc, and I don't care that it says World of Warcraft next to it. I'm dubbing that a Hearthstone Murloc plush hat. I think that we can just appropriate that. I think it's fine.
all you have to do is go to the biggest Comic-Con, right?
You know, if you're going anyway, you may as well get a Murloc hat. You know, I'm just hoping that they'll have these at BlizzCon, right? Like I'm hoping that this is like a merch preview for BlizzCon, because I will take all of these Murlocs home with me. They will have a wonderful home in here. I've already got a couple of Murlocs behind me. I'm happy to add to my collection. He's got a hat and a cane, for God's sake. The Murky, like, it's Dancing Daryl. It's just blue, right? Like, tell me that that's not Dancing Daryl. Anyway, we also, in the shop, the Kel'Thuzad Mage Hero Portrait is available again. You can buy that for, I assume it's $15 or 1,500 gold. So if you missed that one the first time, I think that was a Scholomance pre-order. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was a Scholomance pre-order. So if you didn't get the Scholomance Mega Bundle and you wanted the Kel'Thuzad Hero and the card back, which is why it's 1,500 gold or $15 as opposed to 1,000 gold or $10, then go make sure to check out the shop and pick that up. We had quests. Quests came back to BGs. We talked about that last week. There's been another update to the available quests and quest rewards. So the Pressure the Authorities Battlegrounds quest and the Victim Spectre reward have both been removed from their pools because there are some bugged interactions, and once they fix that, they will bring those back. So not sure what those bugs are. But sometimes they tell us, sometimes they don't, depending on how quickly they can get it out of the pool. But just be aware that that is something that has happened. Also, Lobby Legends is this weekend. We are recording on Tuesday. Sometimes when we record on Thursday, Hearthstone Esports has tweeted about it by then. But so on Tuesday, we're not expecting any information, but keep an eye out on the Hearthstone Esports Twitter to watch that. That will be this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We don't know times or casters, but I'm sure we will find that out over the next couple of days. And also, round 2 of Choose Your Titan just completed. Sargeras did make it through to the final round, as was foretold. So make sure when the voting rolls over to vote in round 3 one more time to make sure to get your extra packs, because who doesn't want free packs?
Vote for ANR.
Is ANR in the final?
I don't know.
Did she make it through? I thought I saw Ben tweeting about that he was trying to find out, because the only way right now until they post the new one is that somebody had voted for them and gotten 2 packs. So he was trying to poll the audience to figure out who the other one was.
Yeah.
One short note, we have some pointing out in the chat that the Kel'Thuzad is 1,500 gold or $10.
Oh, it's $10 US. Okay, good. So even better. So that's even a better deal. So you get the portrait and the card back for $10. So that's pretty good. Okay, so I guess we've gotten all that out of the way. So now we can get to the part that we've been waiting for, which is talking about even more cards. So why don't we just go and do that?
Sure.
All right, so we got a lot of cards over the past few days for several classes, Hunter, Rogue, Priest, and Druid, as well as Paladin, of course, today. So we were going to not necessarily talk about every single card, but rather talk about the packages and, of course, the legendaries and the ones that stand out to us. And if memory serves, we usually end up touching on most of the cards anyway. But if we
really
went card
ourselves.
by card, we can't. But Wicked Good used to go through all of them in detailed card reviews, and that takes a long time.
And I am older and wiser now, and I know the error of my ways. So, though I will tell you, if they had done this, I mean, again, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but the way that they're doing the reveals, where they're doing one class a day, has been fantastic for us to be able to talk about these as a coherent set. And like, had they done this when I was doing the off card reveals, we could have done these like in a couple of batches rather than in like 2 3-hour marathon episodes over a weekend when I wanted to, you know, like chop my throat off afterwards. So
Right, because you basically were like, well, we want to have the full context for everything, so we need to wait until the final dump. Now that they've sort of fixed the system, you could theoretically release content as just like, we're going to cover Paladin today, we're going to cover Hunter today, right? And just sort of split it up. So this is a much better way for us to cover them. However, I will still edit myself into oblivion if we go too long.
We go through every card. Yes, well, and we can't have the fans or the AC on for the audio, so and it's still light outside in California, so
I will warn you that priest is one of the
cool
classes,
off?
so you know.
Oh yes,
No promises.
But we're starting with the best class here because Hunter has some incredible cards. Go watch Blister Guy's card reveal. I look forward
fantastic.
to them every time. I used to get super hyped for the incredibly high budget amazing LP, but I think they're not doing anything anymore related to Hearthstone. Now the reveals I get most excited for are Blister Guys because I hope, I aspire one day to such a reveal style. We'll see. But I mean, I really want to talk about Always a Bigger Jormungandr first because I think that is the biggest deal here. Is that is that
yeah?
cool?
I mean, we got kind of a suite of Attack Matters cards, and Always a Bigger Jormungandr is kind of the capstone of that. So yeah, why don't you talk about that?
So Always Bigger Jormungandr is a 1-mana spell, which means it can be tutored by Trinket Tracker. Give a minion +2 attack, and any excess damage is dealt to the enemy hero. We have a class called Hound Hunter right now, or a deck archetype called Hound Hunter. I think you can see where this is going if you put this on a Hollow Hound. That's a lot of damage.
And it is confirmed that it works that way.
Uh-huh.
At least for now, it works that way.
Like, this turns Hollow Hound into a collateral damage. It's just insane. And, you know, so unbuffed, the base power of 3 for as long as it stays like that. I imagine after this set comes out, it's going to go down to 2, just like in a couple of weeks or whatever. But so base power 3 on the Hound, Always a Bigger Jormungandr gives it +2 attack. If you have any bananas, right, you can buff it more. If you've been, you know, buffing the Hounds from Hope of Quel'Thalas, or just like it gets really insane. Maybe you run Son of Hodir, which turns your next thing into an 8/8, right? And so you've just got a 10/8 Hound that just murders someone in one hit. Like, this is gonna be so disgusting.
I mean, you run Lorthamar in that deck already, right? Like, that's already a thing that we're doing. So I don't see. I mean, this gives you like both, I don't know. Like, I would imagine, like, if this is a thing that we can do, and I don't see why it wouldn't be a thing that we could do. This is one of the things that gets nerfed really quickly because it's one of those things that disincentivizes you from playing minions because it plays into the opponent's win condition, which is generally the things that gets nerfed into the ground. But I guess enjoy this while you have it, right? Because I wouldn't even be so super surprised if there was a day 1 nerf for this after theory crafting like that. We'll see what happens, but it's a very scary card because of Hollow Hound in particular. And I mean, even King Crush, right? Like, you know, there are enough games where you're just sitting there with a 16/16 Crush in your hand, and your opponent has like a 1/4 taunt, and you cannot end the game. And being able to have Crush do, like, it seems like the, you know, the old cartoons of like the elephant being scared by the mouse. When there's like a 16/16 Crush in your hand, your opponent has a tiny taunt that's just keeping them alive, and this keeps that from protecting them, which I think is thematically appropriate, if nothing else.
And there's the 2-mana Absorbent Parasite, 3/1 with Magnetic and Rush that can magnetize to mechs and beasts. So if you have a beast that doesn't have Rush, you can give it Rush. And if you also have mana for the Jormungandr card, then that's face damage from like any beast. So yeah, Hollowhound definitely is the scariest, but even if Hollowhound got nerfed into the ground, there are applications for this card for sure. And lots of ways to buff your minions. I mean, if you use the Absorbent Parasite, that's also a +3 attack to the minion that's rushing. Yep. The 2-mana Observer of Myths, 1/4. After you summon a minion with more attack than this, give all friendly minions +1 attack. That could add up if we're doing a slightly more swarmy version. That's going into that theme of attack matters in the Hunter set. So, of course, we have the 1/3 finale buff the next beast you play. We've already been playing a lot of that for Hollowhound and the other beasts as well. So there are a lot of applications for Always a Bigger Jormungandr.
Yeah. Plus you have Awakening Tremors, which is a 1-mana spell that gives you 3 4/1 worms that cost 1. So playing that with the Observer of Myths is just like a quick way to buff up your whole board, and then just give your whole. It's effectively a Bloodlust, right? It's 5 mana.
Yeah.
Where you play the Observer of Myth and the 3/1/1s. Now, it's going to be on a smaller board than you would typically want to hit with the Bloodlust, but it's still a fair amount of damage, and that damage is permanent, unlike Bloodlust, which is kind of spooky. So there's probably some sort of a face hunter that you can do with something like that.
Yeah, I'm imagining sort of 2 different directions. I think there's going to be some kind of face hunter, potentially secrets because of the bow. We'll get to that. But that is, topping out at bow or maybe and the Titan and just try to kill really, really quickly. And then, the Hound Hunter, which might forgo like the Awakening Tremors, Observer of Myth stuff, just because they want Trinket Tracker to only find bananas and ABJ, Always Bigger Jormungandr. And so I'm curious, like, which of these cards will actually make it into the Hound Hunter. Maybe it's sort of even more, or it remains as a Renathal deck, and they lean more into that just because there's so many powerful cards they can include at this point. But the secret package here is no joke either. Bait and switch. When a friendly minion is attacked, give it +3/+3. Titan Forge Traps is kind of like, Rinling's Rifle, remember, which was 4 mana. You got 2 traps because you attack twice. Well, Titan Forge Traps is 2 mana, discover and cast a secret. And if you forge it, you do it twice. So you can still go 4 mana for 2 secrets.
Oh, I was thinking Ring Toss.
Discovered secrets are just the most frustrating to play against because they weren't in your opponent's deck to begin with. So you don't always have like good frame of reference of what you need to be playing around, so they can have the, always wanted secrets in the main deck, primarily Hidden Meaning right now, and maybe this new one. And then, the once in a while ones that they just discover. And then Starstrung Bow just tops it all off because it is a 6/2 weapon for 6 mana, but 1 less for each friendly secret that has triggered this game. So if you've got, especially Hidden Meaning, which is just super easy to trigger because it sucks to leave 1 mana up every single turn. I think Starstrung Bow is like very frequently going to be 4 or less mana, and that's 12 damage. Like a face kind of secret hunter seems very likely.
That is just a lot of damage. And, you won't, it'd still be a later turn to get it down probably, but you could get that potentially on turn 4 if you've had a couple of secrets earlier on. And even if you get it later, I mean, that's just a ton of damage at any point. And even if you still had the Titan up, usually the Titan's going to be buffing the minion that he gives you through his own battle cry, but it'll also work on any weapon. So, this is also something that if you want to put this up for really cheap, you can still buff it with Agrimar the Avenger. That's probably not the main use, but it's, regardless, just a ton of damage. And over fewer turns than, say, like a 4/3 weapon is also 12 damage. And that would be insane. We play 4/2s all the time. This is 6/2. And 4/2s are good, but, you know, like the Scythe in spell DH is like totally fine by itself. You know, we're happy enough to play that in that deck. And this one could easily be 4 mana 6/2.
I don't even remember the last time we got a weapon that was this big. Like Gorahal is like the other one that I can think of. Like I'm trying to think of like the last 6 attack weapon that we've had, and I can't even think of one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like we've had plenty of 5 attack minions, 5 attack weapons rather, but like, you know, but like a 6 attack weapon, like I can't remember the last time that we've even seen one. But yeah, it's so much damage. And I mean, like I saw Linny was posting on Twitter today that she's running like freezing trap in her Hound Hunter now, just to like mess with people, right? Like the effect of just like not knowing what to play around, so you have to play around everything, is a big deal. And I mean, it's, even if you don't forge it, even if you just like throw it out on 2 just to get a secret, like that's fine sometimes too. Like obviously you'd want to. I don't know that a face secret hunter is even going to want to take the time. I mean, you'd probably do that if you top deck it, right? Like then you would forge it. But this is one of the ones that we've been talking about, like how flexible are the forge cards, right? Like how often are you going to be willing to play in the base form? And I think this is one where you might. Right? Because in like a face secret hunter, if that's the only secret and you need secrets to get going, like you probably just play that on 2 and be fine with it. And then if you top deck it later, okay, well, I don't have it. I'm floating mana anyway. So now I'll pay the 2 mana, get 2 secrets out of it, and just make it that much better.
And there are so many secrets in standard right now for Hunter. Like there's a lot of stuff they have to play around. You know, they'll think about like there's certain ones that are obviously going to be more likely to be picked, but there's lots of different things that you could pick. I think there's like with the new 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 secrets in standard right now for Hunter. So, you know, it's not just hidden meaning. If they need a little bit of damage, you could do motion denied. For example, cat trick, zombies, you know, your classic freezing trap. Like it definitely, we know from Mage that just playing around secrets is really disruptive. And while these are not Mage secrets, and so you don't have objection and counterspell, there's still, I think, some potentially even for a faster deck. And if you do forge it and you get 2 of them, which maybe you don't do in a really fast deck, but that is 2 procs on the bow. It makes it come down for 2 less mana.
Sure is.
Yeah. I mean, so the secrets have to actually trigger. I think that's the one big thing about this bow, is it's not just play that many. They do have to trigger, which is why I expect you want, you know, stuff that triggers very easily, that, you know, that you're running main deck, and then, you know, maybe sometimes you get additional ones that you like off the forge card. But what's kind of crazy is that even with 9 secrets in Hunter right now, I don't feel like there's any that are like just awful. Like, you know, they took out Snipe, they took out gosh, I feel like there had been some other ones that were like
Ice Trap's great. The other big one that was played a lot. That's out. That rotated out.
Well, my point is there are no longer ones that like really, really suck, right? Like if you're discovering, you're just like, oh, these are all bad. Like even though there's a lot of secrets to pick from, I don't think there's any, you know, showing of 3 discovers that you're really gonna hate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's kind of just really tough for people to play around because there's so many, and they could be pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter's got some interesting directions to go in. It'll be interesting to see if we get like new archetypes out of this, or if it just like makes Hound Hunter better, right? Like I think that's because Hound Hunters are already running a secret package now, and maybe it kind of diverges in 2 directions, right? Like maybe we end up with like a secret deck and then a Hound Hunter because the Hound Hunter doesn't have room for the secrets anymore, right? It'll be interesting to see like what directions the Hunter decks go in, but I mean, you could see how these could both fit into the decks that we have now and also make an entirely new archetype, which is good. I mean, that's what we're looking for, right? So,
All right.
So, yeah.
Yes, we should probably move on to Rogue, which has a strong. Here, let me pull up the correct cards here. There's a mech direction for many of these cards, as well as some sort of miscellaneous cards, which also are interesting to talk about and potentially powerful. But definitely, we had a sense from the Rogue Titan that there would probably be a mech rogue direction, and we'd also seen the spider magnetic stealth minion, but now we have these really interesting gadgets and spark bots that give, I think, the mech rogue a very rogue feel. It feels different than the other mech decks that we've seen, like in Paladin. It feels a little bit like the Stormwind quest rogue, which was probably the sort of least offensive quest that was still good and made a fun deck, unlike perhaps Quest Paladin, except for in very certain circumstances. So if we look at Mimiron the Mastermind, 3-mana, 2/5 mech legendary. After you play a mech, get a random one of Mimiron's gadgets. And Mimiron's Coolant is 0 mana. The next card you play this turn costs 2 less. The Cloak Field is 1 mana. Give a friendly minion +3 attack and stealth until your next turn. A Switch, 1 mana, choose 2 minions. They swap stats, and that can be enemy minions or your own minions or a combination. Mimiron's Horn, give a minion Taunt and Divine Shield, also 1 mana. Rewinder, 1 mana, return a minion to its owner's hand, again, yours or your opponent's. So very flexible. And Mimiron's Blades, 1 mana, deal 3 damage. So you don't necessarily know exactly what you're going to get, but if you play multiple mechs in a turn, you can be pretty sure that you're going to get a number of options. And there's ways here, like with the Coppertail Snoop, which is magnetic. Whenever this attacks, get a coin. 3 mana, 4/3 mech beast. You may have some coins to have some extra mana cheating because you're rogue to be able to get more of these gadgets or spark bots. So there are lots of sort of options to play lots of cards in a turn and mana cheat and generally feel like a rogue without being a miracle rogue per se.
Yeah, a lot of people who are, rogue enthusiasts are not super thrilled about these cards because they sort of look at, what they've got from Festival and what they've got from this set and are thinking about, rotation next year and just worried about what rogue will have left. I mean,
once they lose Nathria.
Right. Miracle Rogue has sort of like been the thing because people didn't really, once again, mess with the pirate stuff out of Voyage. So a lot of people aren't really happy about this. I really like this kind of stuff because I like aggressive rogues that, do some cheaty stuff with Shadow Step, etc., but are not just like play a whole bunch of stuff in a turn, because I feel like it's always been, for the people that really love Rogue, that it's the same Rogue deck just in different forms, right? That it's Miracle Rogue version, 3 point whatever, just like you just update it every time there's new stuff. You swap out some tools and it's better or worse depending on whether it's got certain support tools or not. And they usually don't like things like Odd Rogue, which was the Rogue deck I probably played the most of, or like Kaliseth Rogue. And I sort of always like these much more minion-based rogue decks that still do some of the like tempo-y things that rogue does, you know, with shadow step and with some mana cheating, etc., but are like minion based aggro decks. And I think this has a lot of potential. You know, you saw like a menagerie rogue coming up previously, and you could maybe just do like the amalgams and then run these, right? They're mech beasts, which helps because that's multiple types. And imagine like going, you know, turn one mistake into like coining out Coppertail Snoop, and you attack with a 5/6 and get your coin back. Like there's going to be some crazy stuff that you can do here.
If you are
Mimiron-
playing, sorry, just really quick, if you're playing Menagerie Rogue and you play Pit Stop, the 2 mana, discover a mech from your deck, give it +2/+1, you can get more amalgams pretty consistently, depending on how many mechs you're playing.
Yeah.
And even if you're playing a dedicated mech rogue, you might be able to get another Titan, you might be able to get another Mimiron.
Yeah,
That
and I
there's
mean,
some options there.
I could see being able to min max Mimiron to be able to get like, I mean, these are like spare parts, but like genuine manufacturer products, right? Like these are no joke. What's going on with the gadgets, and you could even if you wanted to, you might even be able to fit this into like a location deck, right? Because those are so cheap. So you might be able to do some sort of like a weird miracle mech rogue or something like that if you wanted to. I mean that, but yeah, like the rogue mains want to play miracle rogue, and miracle, like the devs painted themselves into a corner with Nathria. Like they made miracle rogue too good, and they cannot print more miracle rogue cards until that rotates. Like they just can't. So this is the kind of stuff we're gonna get. But yeah, I mean, tempo rogue is occasionally a thing. They've tried it with pirates. It hasn't been that it was sort of successful for a little bit with like boat rogue for like a minute. Right. And then this could get there with all the magnetic support that we had, but also as someone who does not particularly enjoy playing against rogue, these also seem fair-ish, which is great from somebody who's going to play against rogue, because these don't seem like broken. I mean, I think the one that does seem the most, but with the most potential to be broken, is Lab Constructor, which is the 4-mana 3/2 mech. At the end of this turn, at the end of the turn, summon a copy of this with Forge Game Magnetic. So then it's a matter of like, what kind of degenerate thing do you want to of, right? Because you could have something that you've built up with Coppertail Snoop, and then you're getting a whole bunch of coins, right? Or maybe you're getting a second Mimiron, you know, or a second Titan. Like, what are you trying to do with that? And I think that's where some people might try to go, is try to break Lab Constructor, but it also seems very slow. I mean, all the Forge cards are kind of slow, and that's not really a tempo card, right? Like this is something where you're trying to do some sort of a broken combo, and I'm not sure what the target is for it, but I mean, if it is the Titan, I mean, that's expensive, but also like having two 6, 9, 6, 7 plus whatever the other buff is can't be targeted, right? Like getting 2 of those that then get to buff other things on board the following turn individually. Like it's a lot of value if you can get there. I just don't know if that's like the goal with that card, or what the kind of Jombre will figure out a way, right? Like this seems like a Jombre card. It's like a Mass Reveler effectively. So
I think people might be surprised by sort of the options available here. Like you can go for a menagerie thing, like I mentioned. You can go full on, you know, mechs, which will still necessarily involve some amalgams. But yeah, with a Lab Constructor and a lot of these, like you say Forge on 2 into Spider and it has stealth, and then you do the Lab Constructor, like that's still a 6/6 that summons a copy of itself, and we'll keep doing that until they're both removed. Like that's a lot.
Or all removed, right? Because the next turn you're gonna have 4 of them if they stick.
Well, right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, Lab Constructor can do a lot of stuff. You maybe you get a stealth thing off of Mimiron, and then you get an extra Mimiron. Like, there's going to be some crazy snowbally things happening. I think there's a world also, like you were saying, where you do a miracle situation that you just have Mimiron and maybe Voltron Prime as the mechs in there. You can run Pit Stop for some consistency, and then you do a couple of from the scrap heaps to give you the spark bots. I think that's why this thing costs 2, because they want you to have to like prep it or do some other thing, because they're 1/1s, which automatically makes them pretty solid for the kind of things the Miracle Rogue does. And then the stuff you get off Mimiron are also 1 cost or less depending on the effect gadgets. So there could be a lot of miracle potential just by being able to consistently pull Mimiron from Pit Stop and then doing from the scrap heap. Them also being 1/1s means you'll have a 1/1 minion to play alongside Voltron Prime. And I mentioned before, the Voltron Prime doing its, deal 4, and then you like can step it and do that again. Like, that's a lot of damage.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the class that broke Loan Shark. They found a way to break Loan Shark, right? And turn that into a miracle deck. So, like, anything that can get you, like, a whole bunch of coins, like, it's still potentially scary. I don't know how easy or hard it's going to be, but, I mean, given that the Coppertail Snoop is magnetic also, like, it effectively gets charge, right? So,
right.
There's things that you can do there. I just don't know if it's going to be any better or worse than what they already have.
Yeah, no, and it does seem like, maybe we're not doing, but there's, try to do a sort of tempo-y mech rogue or a menagerie, but maybe you do something a little more miracle and have the sort of later swing turns, and that would feel a little more rogue-esque. As, I've enjoyed Miracle Rogue, but that's never been my main jam, and so I can understand why, if that is, this may not feel like what you were looking for, but yeah, with the location from Nathria, unless you just completely make it unplayable, in which case you don't really have a payoff for the miracle. It is, I think it is hard for them to some extent to balance making Rogue feel like Rogue and not just having, the deck that keeps getting nerfed and keeps still being good and keeps annoying people at Top Legend. Although, fortunately or unfortunately, not as much other parts of Ladder.
Well, I think we can move on to your class, both of you.
We're only an hour and 15 in, so that gives us at least an hour to talk about Priest.
No. That's right. There's a Priest deck that I want to play. Okay.
So there's kind of a theme. I was saying on Twitter that somebody needs to take like the "we're just normal men" meme and make it like we're just big green men, because that seems like that's kind of the theme. Like, there's multiple classes that effectively got Jade Druid in this set, and Priest is one of them. So a lot of the cards in the preset revolve around Astral Automaton, which is a 1-mana 1/1 mech that gets +1/+1 for each other Astral Automaton you've summoned this game. Now, unlike the Earthens in Paladin, this is a constant effect. So as soon as you summon another Astral Automaton, I believe it gets buffed immediately. So they're all going to be the same size, as opposed to the Earthens that get buffed when you summon them. But we've got, and everything that we talked about with the Earthens and resurrecting them goes for the Astral Automaton also. And then we've got a number of cards in Priest that care about minions that didn't start in your deck. So Haden, is it Haden or is it Raden?
Raden.
I'm trying to look at the stream and it's very small. Raden is a, and now I'm trying to get back to the other screen. 6-mana 5/5 with Death Rattle, summon a copy of every minion that didn't start in your deck. Right, so if you have a lot of copies of Astral Automaton, you're going to end up with a late game Relic Demon Hunter board. Right, and so Then you have things like Creation Protocol, which is the Forge card for Priest, which is 2 mana Holy Spell, with which it says discover a copy of a minion in your deck, forge, get another copy. So if you are looking for Astral Automaton, you can get 2 more of those. That's something else that you can do. Then you also have... Yeah, go ahead.
Just one thing to note for Raden, he only summons each other minion you've played this game that didn't start in your deck. So if you're using the 1 mana Resurrect, for example...
The Animate Dead, yeah.
The Animate Dead, or other... and I'm not actually certain about something like Cover Artist, because you didn't... I think Cover Artist wouldn't count. Weird. Yeah, because you played the Cover Artist, and then it turned into the Automaton, but when you played it, it was something that started in your deck. That would be my guess, but I'm not 100% certain. But still, if you do something like Creation Protocol, those will count for Raden, and you don't really need that many. Even if you don't have ones from Animate Dead, for example, come back from Raden, they're still counting for the +1/+1s that the ones he brings back do have. So, but that is just a thing to note, that it's only ones that you've played.
Yeah, I like the way that they've made, these things that are clearly have synergy in one way. Like they definitely wanted to do Earthen, they definitely want to do Astral Automaton, but they can be useful in other ways, right? Like you could run Tyr, not with Earthen, just to resurrect a bunch of Divine Shield Paladin minions, right? You can play Raden doing like the Stars Align, which is the weirdest priest card I've ever seen. This is a shaman card, disguised as a priest card. Transform minions in your hand into ones that cost 3 more. They keep the original cost.
Yeah.
So in the vein of, I don't care about the stuff I have, it's just value stuff, right? Like,
I mean, if you want Raden to resurrect a bunch of crap, right, then you can do that. I mean, it's not quite Surrender to Madness in terms of like weird priest cards, but it's up there. And it's like some people just want to like throw all the cards up in the air and let them fall where they may. Like there are definitely some Chaos Orb gamers, right, who will just like want to play the Chaos deck, and that's all they want to do. And that's fine.
Even like Amanthul, every time you use a Titan ability, you discover a legendary minion. Like you'll get those back too.
You will.
What I'm really scared of is a control deck that's just like Amanthul and Behemoth and Raden, and you just Creation Protocol and do the finale spell for more of those. It's just Amanthul control, where you're just removing 2 minions all the time and discovering legendary minions, and then sometimes Raden will bring back those legendary minions. Like it's now to a point where you can just have so much value out of so few cards in Priest that like the entire rest of the deck could be removal and heal. And your value
power chord synchronize
is accounted for. Exactly.
That's like, I mean, I think we were starting to, I started already theory crafting it. Yeah. And power chord synchronize is another card that's going to be, that's going to be part of that. Also, any Storm Coil, by the way, because it's a mech, will summon a copy of it with Rush and Divine Shield and Lifesteal or whatever the hell any does. Right.
So once they're large for 6 mana, you can do that.
Yeah. So that's, and then I also got like Masked Revelers, because that's another copy of it, right? So you can do that. And Amanthul also copies a minion. So if you want Amanthul to copy another Astral Automaton, that's going to get very large, and that's going to, especially, or you can, give it Taunt and Lifesteal, whatever, right? Like that's pretty good. Well, no, it's the summon that gets Taunt and Lifesteal, but the copy, I mean, I forget which one does what, but you're definitely getting a copy out of Amanthul, right? So that's going to be there also. So like there's a lot of stuff you can do. I mean, you could just run Boon of the Ascended to just make one of these into a giant taunt. Like that doesn't make another automaton, but it just puts a big taunt bot on board, which is the kind of thing that you want to do, right? So there are a couple ways you could build it. Like one is like the way I was looking at it was basically like I want Animate Dead to always hit automaton, so it doesn't have any minions that cost less than 4 other than that, other than Finley, just as a break glass in an emergency type of thing. But you could also just build it like, you know, a swarm undead priest with a whole bunch of small things, and automatons are just kind of like one piece of it, and that's another thing that you can do. But it's again, this is kind of the same thing as like with Rogue, where they can't print that many more Control Priest cards because Control Priest is already kind of oppressive. So like they need to give priests something else to do that's not that, it's not undead, right? So they found a third way, which is actually pretty cool to open up a different archetype like this.
So that does bring
excited.
me to Serenity and Grace of the High Father. I'm curious how
Yeah.
you feel about those in terms of, you know, their potential use in a Control Priest. Say you're doing this Control Priest where you just have like Creation Protocol, Power Chord Synchronize, and Amanthul, Savalna, right? You have these crazy value generators, and then everything else is removal and heal. Like, are you looking at Grace of the High Father and Serenity for something like that?
Serenity, yes. Grace of the High Father is like, looks terrible to me, and maybe I'm wrong. So Grace of the High Father is a 3-mana holy spell. Restore 8 health, discover a card that costs the amount overhealed. So it doesn't go in the overheal deck. It's not really great in a control for, like, I can flash heal for 5 health for 1 mana, right? And we don't do that for the most part. So 3 is a lot of mana to spend on just 8 health. I mean, it is burst healing, but like, it's like most of the time you don't get a 0 mana card if you overheal 8, by the way, because if you heal, like the way overheal works is that if you go exactly up to the max health of either your face or the minion, it doesn't trigger. So overhealing for 8, like if you were at like 22 and you heal yourself for 8, you don't get a 0 cost card. So that makes it a little bit worse. I mean, the 0 cost cards are, you know, fine, but Illuminate's probably decent enough, or Undying Allies would be situationally good, but you're not going to get those. So like, if you're using this you're basically using this on a minion, which you're not really doing in Control Priest very much. Like, you're doing that in the Overheal Priest, but you're not spending 3 mana on a heal in Overheal Priest, because you're trying to heal like a bunch of times at once, right? Like, you're trying to Fan Club and like Funnel Cake and Flash Heal to get like a bunch of Overheal triggers to go all at the same time, and like, this is really expensive for that. And then in Control Priest, it's just not good enough, but you'll discover it sometimes. I think Serenity is really interesting, which is 4 mana holy spell, give all enemy minions -2 attack, destroy any with 0 attack. So it's a good earlier anti-aggro tool, but also that -2 is permanent.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I'm so used to those effects being like just one round, like pint-sized potion, but now it makes sense why it costs 4, because it's permanent. Yeah.
And it makes more sense why they would die at 0 attack, because you know, otherwise you're board locking your opponent.
Then it becomes a Frost Nova, right? So I mean, that's what Wave of Apathy was. Wave of Apathy was effectively a Frost Nova when it was used that way, when it was in Standard. So like, but this also curves right into Clean the Scene, right? So you could use this both to get rid of a board of like a bunch of small things that they're about to buff with whatever today's equivalent of Arbor Up is, and then the next turn you can use Clean the Scene to clean up the rest. So I think that has some potential in a Control Priest. I think the other one that's kind of been a lot of debate has been False Disciple, which is the 2 mana 2/2 with Battlecry, discover a legendary priest minion from the past, which I honestly just don't know. Like, there are a lot of bad priest legendaries, but there are also some pretty good ones, like the Nameless one, and I mean, Elucia is still like post nerf Elucia, so it's not, but like Nameless one, and like Madame Lazul's not bad. There's a few others. Yeah, Mita's pretty good.
And
there's
it's always
a few
Najak. Trust. It's always Najak.
Yeah, Najak Hexen's okay too. There's a few good ones, but there's also like Goon the Blood God. and like, I mean, Confessor Paletress would be fun, but I don't think that's what you want a lot of the time. And like Princess Talanji, like there's a lot of bad ones too. So it's a matter of like, we were talking about this in Discord, and Hat basically said well, I hope somebody puts this into a control priest for theory crafting so we get an idea of what the pool looks like. So that was a very subtle way to get me to build a control priest, because this does not take very much, of incentive for me to try to build a control priest and play it in any sort of a form. So we'll get to see what that pool looks like, but I just don't know how good the pool is and how often you're gonna get something that you want. Is really what it comes down to.
I feel like we won't get to see the true power of control priest in the theory crafting, because the optimal version is not going to have enough cards to. Oh,
there's I didn't find it very hard to get 10 cards into a control priest, honestly.
Really?
10 new cards.
I see 5, right? 2 copies of Creation Protocol, 2 of Serenity, and Amanthul, but that's all.
I didn't even put Creation Protocol in. No, I'd two Watchers of the Sun, which is the neutral that that discovers a holy spell and heals you for 6.
Oh, but see, this is what I mean. The way that I want to build this, that I think will be really good, has like hardly any minions besides Amanthul and Svalna and Behemoth, and it's just like
I'm not going that way.
Besides,
no, I've got 2 False Disciples, 2 Watchers of the Sun, 2 Serenities, Raden, Amanthul, Prison of Yogg-Saron, and Kolagarn. So Kolagarn's the rush 6/10 that yeets the minion back to your hand, to the opponent's minion to your hand.
Oh god, that's right. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, here I am just sitting there, obviously trying to go for the more tempo priest with the automaton, and thinking, the kind that with the maximum copies feels to me like when we had Shadow Priest with just trying to get the most shadowed spirits, and we were running like Cyrella Hero, and it was really satisfying when you got it off, and it just didn't happen very often, and for a while
and
there was kind of a
hits.
burn hybrid. Yeah, so it might be more like Swarm Undead, where this is just an extra thing that's could snowball in your deck if you need to go longer and you didn't just kill them. Yeah. That seems more likely, but I'm definitely going to want to try a just all in automaton deck.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be control priest and kind of casino priest almost some of these. So which hopefully is not, a casino priest is tier fun, but we'll see. I think it probably will be, but just put that out there. Hopefully it is.
Yeah, I mean, stars align and pray. I mean, that's it's no celestial alignment though, but maybe it'll get there someday. Who knows?
Well, speaking of druid cards, I think we should head on over to our final class that we now have all the cards for, which is druid. We saw some of the ramp stuff earlier in terms of ANR and the Embrace of Nature, which, draw, choose 1 card, forge. It has both effects combined. That is obviously meant to draw Nourish. I don't know what else you would draw it with. Oh yeah, all these choose 1 cards.
For example, there's quite a few. Lifebinder's Gift, 2 mana, choose 1, get 2 random nature spells, or reduce the cost of spells in your hand by 1. I think, and you correct me if you know, it happens in the order that it says on the card.
Yeah,
so it would reduce the cost of the 2 random nature spells as well.
Yeah. That is how the Fandral effects work. They go in order. So like if you think about how Wrath worked with Fandral would do the 3 then the 1, right? It would do it in the order that it was there. So yeah.
Which is why Ancient of Growth will summon 3 2/2 treants and then transform them into 5/5 treants with taunt if you get both effects on that one. All spooky.
Yeah. And that then works well for a lot of the cards that care about your treants, such as Cultivation, which is an 8 mana nature spell. Give your minions +2/+2, costs 1 less for each treant you've summoned this game. So the Ancient of Growth discounts that by 3 by itself. If you used it to summon treants or you used it for both.
Card is terrifying. Wild Treant Druid is going to be bananas. right? Like in a couple ways, you could do. I mean, if you're doing like a spell deck, there's probably enough things that are just spells that make treants that cultivation gets reduced, but also you've got the. Oh wait, were these treants? I thought they were. Wasn't there? Maybe they weren't though. Maybe they were beasts.
The saplings from the one card that are
I was
not.
thinking of Glowfly Swarm, and they are not. So thank goodness for that. But even so, there's been quite a few treant things over time, and we've got a decent number in standard right now. Just the concept that Druid will be doing what it wants to do as an aggro Druid anyway, and making a bunch of dudes, and while they're doing that, they're also just passively reducing the cost of cultivation. And based on the fact that it says summoned this game, it doesn't have to be in their hand or anything, because that would make it pretty bad. So it's just going to get reduced, and eventually they just have access to this +2/+2 buff out of nowhere. Pretty scary.
If you do Drum Circle,
Yep.
you get 5 2/2 treants. If
Mhm.
you did that, there's more than one card that allows you to choose, has the Fandral effect of do both effects from a choose one. So Drum Circle has 5 2/2 treants with +2/+4 and taunt. And then that is, if you've summoned like any other treants that game, your cultivation is free. So you get an additional +2/+2 for your whole board. We also have like Witchwood Apple, which adds 2 2/2 treants to your hand, and they only cost 1 mana. Plot of Sin is a 3 mana summon 2 2/2 treants. You almost maybe don't want to infuse it. If you infuse 5, you get 2 5/5 ancients, but maybe you don't want to. Blood Treant suddenly makes sense.
Yeah.
At least more sense.
I mean, Soul of the Forest is still in standard too, and it costs 3 now, right? So like that's a lot of treants just by itself. Like you get a wide board and then Soul of the Forest, and now your cultivation is free on the reload board that your opponent couldn't clear. So yeah, there's a lot of spooky stuff. I mean, you could even go all the way up to Cenarius if you wanted to. It's still in standard. I don't know that Cenarius is the way, but if you're able to get a Fandral Cenarius, like when we've been able to play Cenarius with both effects, that has seen play in the past. So that's something, especially if you have a board already, you're getting, 2 more 2/2s plus the 5/8, and then you're buffing the whole board for +2/+2. That's, I doubt that that's going to be the way we're going to go, but it's an option. It's something you could do. So, and we also have Conservator Nymph, which is with a Battlecry, transform a friendly tree into a 5/5 agent with taunt. So you can at least take one of them without getting rid of your treant count, right? Like that's the difference between that and Plot of Sin, where Plot of Sin is summoning the ancients. You've already summoned the treant, and then you're turning it into an ancient. So that's, being able to upgrade one of those treants. So you could just like play the Witchwood Apple, and then on turn 3 with the coin, or on turn 4, you just throw down a treant, make a 5/5. You also got a 3/4 on right next to it. That's a pretty good turn 4 or turn 3 with coin.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, you go.
I don't know if, this will immediately be the density of treant stuff to work. It looks pretty promising, but we have not really been able to have a good aggro Druid deck for a while. There's also like a couple weird cards, one of which is a treant card, and that's Forest Seedlings. 1 mana, summon 2 1/1 saplings, blossoms in 2 turns, which I think just means it sits in your hand for 2 turns. So you can't like play it on 1 for this. And once it blossoms, you get 2 treants instead of the 1/1 saplings, still for 1 mana. And then there's also Frost Lotus Seedling, 3 mana, draw 1 card, gain 4 armor, blossoms in 3 turns, becomes draw 2 cards, gain 8 armor. So I don't really know how good these are going to be, because they have to sit in your hand for a bit. Like Forest Seedlings, I am a little more on board with, just in terms of if you've got particularly an aggro deck that maybe doesn't care as much about treants, or just like sometimes you do this for the treants, sometimes you just do this for the turn 1 2 1/1s. Maybe that works out. The Frost Lotus Seedling I'm a little less high on, just because 3 turns is a really long time. So if it's not in your opening mulligan, it seems pretty rough.
Yeah, draw, you want to be able to be something that can be top decked if you're out, especially in an aggro type of deck. And this is, you know, it draws 1 and gains you 4 armor if you top deck it, but that just kind of replaces itself for 3 mana. So it's not a great top deck, which has sometimes been a problem for like infuse cards as well. That, you know, like Famished Fool off the top by itself was just never what you wanted to do. If you didn't already have a board. I mean, you're not necessarily doing Frost Lotus Seedling in an aggro deck, but in any type of deck, it's not a great top deck card.
And you don't really want to keep Arcane Intellect in your mulligan, right? I mean, that's like, yeah, it's Arcane Intellect with 8 armor, but you're keeping Arcane Intellect in your mulligan, and that's not really what you want to be doing, like regardless of what the deck is. So you'd rather just get other things than get that. I mean, you could pick it up, right? And then it's just sitting there and eventually it gets there. But 3 turns is a long time. And like, even for our seedlings, like you can get there. Like if you have to wait for 2 turns for that to blossom in the tree, it's fine. Like you hold it, but like three turns is forever.
Yeah. And I think that's really what sets me against it. I don't know if it was too, I guess maybe they felt that would be too good. But I mean, I honestly feel like you have to keep it in the mulligan for it to be, you know, playable, right? That it's just like, no, I'm a deck that, I mean, there are decks that would want to keep AI and play AI on 3 because they're building to something. And so that's the kind of situation where this might be okay. But the difference being that you still get armor, but you're only getting 1 card for 3 mana, which is really terrible if you're picking stuff up later.
Yeah.
Not that druids that go slower are necessarily going to have any trouble with cards in the late game because of ANR or Freya.
We haven't talked about Freya.
Those 2 cards. But so Freya, 8 mana legendary, 4/6. Choose 1, duplicate your hand, or summon copies of all other friendly minions. So if you ANR, refresh your mana crystals, Freya, you get another ANR, plus whatever else you happened to have.
Oh my god.
And maybe you also did the Fandral effect and you get your duplicated hand also.
So here's the thing. I'm really not high on Freya, at least not for the ANR deck, just because I think the ANR deck is the one that is most going to want to do Embrace of Nature with Nourish being the only choose one. Because
but you run Disciple of ENR, right? So you have some redundancy there.
Maybe. I mean, I figure you're running double Cover Artist, right? Because that does effectively the same thing as Freya in terms of like refreshing ANR's ability. So you can refresh your mana crystals, Cover Artist the ANR, and then draw to full hand, and potentially like go to full life as well on the next one or something. Like the chains are going to be pretty silly, and I feel like you don't want any choose ones besides Nourish, so that Embrace of Nature can draw it. I mean, you could run Disciple of ANR in that deck still, but I think the fact that Embrace of Nature draws, and you want to make sure that you draw and Nourish, makes it a little bit superior for me. We'll have to see, but I'm a little scared about just the consistency that Druid is going to be able to just have a crazy like ramp into Anna turn. We don't still have Capture Coldtooth Mine, right? That's gone.
No, thank God. Thank God. That was Alterac Valley. No, so at least that's like one small mercy.
But we do have the one that draws large, draws 5 or more, or that things that cost 5 or more.
That's true. Yeah.
What was that one called?
Flower Child.
Star Child. Yeah, Flower Child. It is just 2 cards, not just 2 minions. That cost 6 or more, sorry. But that could help tutor your ANR. It's not Capture Coldtooth Mine, thankfully. But it is another potential way
Yeah.
to get there.
Or like, I don't know, Talon. I mean, Druid doesn't usually have to resort to Talon. Just 2 copies of Summerflower Child like might be enough depending on how you build the deck. With cover arts and everything, just the fact that A&R is a board in a box because each time you use an ability summons the ancients. I guess the one thing is I expect we do still want to run a Jailer plus the giant that shuffles in the 4 giants that cast when drawn. So we'll see how this deck ends up being built, but I'm kind of terrified of.
I mean, you just take like
Jailer and ETC, so you don't draw it off Flower Child.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of take the most absurd scenario possible, and then just like it was not that long ago that that you predicted Kazakhstan Druid at all. So I'm anytime that there's like potential, or was it Kazakhstan? Well, it was Kazakhstan Druid, but also the Brandon Athreus Druid, Ramp Druid. Yeah. So like anytime that there's like a potentially disgusting Druid combo, I get very nervous because it's very plausible.
Look, I know my enemy. I've been hunting them for years. I know what they can do. Well, I think
on that note,
yeah, that'll about do it for this episode of Coin Concede. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com, and write into our email at at coinconcede@gmail.com. Still working on speed. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede, as well as like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CoinConcede. If you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, DogeTK, Crash, Cap, Beef Squatch, David P, Walu, Jeremy T, Bottle Caps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Forgiven One, and Enraged Chicken. And just extra shout out thank you to Hat and the community team for giving us 6 cards effectively to reveal, because there were the 4 Titans ones and then the 2 core set cards, getting to reveal the replacement for Paladin Secrets, which is pretty awesome. And then a quick thank you to Number Theory for the sub just now. Coin Concedes.
Well, I would like to Coin Concede to the 2 of you for inviting me to be a co-host of the show. I'm really, really excited. I was something that I really wanted to do, but didn't really know was a possibility. And so I was really excited to have this opportunity, and I really hope that I can help pass on some of what Coin Concede has been to me to other people in the community and all of you who are listening. So thank you very much. And thank you to you and everyone who's been on Coin Concede and in the community for making this show what it is, and making the Discord community what it is, and the live Twitch streams. Thank you to all of you who are here, and all of you who have stuck with us to the end. Long show because there's lots of cards. And
this is short by a card reveal standard.
That's true. It's actually shorter than some of the ones I was on, and we had more cards. So good job.
Yeah. I'm going to Coin Concede to Megasa for accepting. So, I'm glad that our search is finally over and we can get back to normal. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited to have you, joining us, and it's going to be a great journey. I also want to Coin Concede to Ben Heatstone, who was kind enough to let us use the graphics that he made for the sets on the stream today, which is much better than whatever I was going to try to jerry rig together in a hurry before the show. So getting that as one graphic rather than trying to scroll maddeningly through all the cards individually, it was a big upgrade. So thank you to them, and also for promoting the card reveal as well. And for everybody who was in chat and hanging out, especially till the end, you know, we really appreciate everybody coming and tuning in, even when it's not a card reveal, but certainly, you know, showing the support when it is a card reveal. So, Coin Conceit to all of you, and all of you listening too, because, you know, we are a podcast also. So even though if you couldn't be here for the stream, you know, we still appreciate you too.
And then I'm also going to coin concede. I'm doing great today. Coin concede to Megasa for putting together some great graphics for us to use. This is going to be a very helpful skill because, you know, Wicked and I do our best, but neither of us are always like itching to make graphics for various things. So very helpful. And I don't think I mentioned this previously, but I want to coin concede to Gimpy, who is a mod for Smarms, because they picked up 2 tickets. So that's like part of the reason that I have tickets to go to BlizzCon is because Storm Rage and Gimpy picked up 2 each. So like we've got enough for everyone, because I think Smarms was busy that day and I was not able to get through. So saves me a bit of headache for, you know, in terms of making sure that I'll be able to go to BlizzCon. I'm so excited. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast.
I'm really excited. And also, if you don't have BlizzCon tickets yet, that's a good reminder. I believe... Oh, no. Was that already passed?
Nope, 22nd.
Nope. Okay. The 22nd is your second chance to get the tickets. You want to get in there. It'll put you in a queue, so you want to get in before the tickets start going on sale, which is something that we didn't quite realize. But luckily, was able to get a couple of tickets. You know, after I was asked to be on the show, you two were like, "So BlizzCon?" I'm like, "Yes, all right." Get a couple days off work, get these tickets, and I'm really excited to meet people in person and be at actual in-person con.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Like the one time I got to go was a blast and got to meet a lot of people, and it was a blur, but it's, you know, that was like my 40th birthday present to myself, and it was, you know, that was a good choice. We'll just put it that way. But BlizzCon's a couple months away, so remember to keep an eye out on Twitter and on Discord for info about our theory crafting streams. You'll want to tune in for that. That's going to be fun. But until next time, you know, keep calm and go build some decks. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Recording.
Under 2 hours even. Wow.
Oh, I'm so
wow.
happy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
And Matt, thanks for coming in and modding like last minute in a panic. We appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, this was fun. I'm glad this went pretty smoothly, because I was, you know, you're always nervous right before something like this, and like, what am I going to mess up? Especially because I'm trying to get all the OBS stuff all set up ahead of time, and like, what did I forget? But other than not having the gadgets for Rogue, I think I got it all pretty much down. So
there was a lot of those gadgets.
There were.
It was like, I better read fast.
Who are we rating? Oh, wait. Oh, it's Tuesday. Sidisi's streaming.
Excellent.
Oh. Well, I think that makes it easy. Okay. So we're going to go rate Sidisi. And hopefully he is better at not drawing King Crush than I am.
It's just a skill difference.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you know, I bet if he was trying to not draw priest card, well, he's pretty good at not drawing priest cards too, I guess. Because he just doesn't play them and dusts them just to be extra sure.
We need to make a, you know, third-party software that whenever you draw King Crush just says "Get good, scrub." Like,
I probably should just, if I'm going to play that deck a lot, I should just start a counter, like a command on my stream for just how many crushes I've drawn. Because, you know, I'm very talented at it. It's really good. Anyway, we're going to go over to Sidisi, and you can go watch some actual Hunter gameplay. And yeah, be good to each other, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.